going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here with Cheesehead TV, back for another week of Carry the G and MKE. And back with me for another week of talking all things Packers is Camille Davis. Camille, how you doing? Happy Victory Monday.
I'm great. Like you said, it is Victory Monday. There is nothing for me to complain about today, especially when that week one victory comes over the Chicago Bears. Like, it's just beautiful.
Extra sweet. I was gonna ask, what's the vibe in Milwaukee today? I gotta think, given everything you talked about last week, how the Bears fans do tend to live among you there in Milwaukee at times. How's it feeling around the MKE?
It's quiet. It's really quiet. It's just a
Comparative
lot
to the
of
offseason, probably.
exactly a lot of green and gold and just happiness in the streets of Milwaukee here today because all the Bear fans know they have to go to work today. And the Slack channels are going to be outrageous. The in-person trash talking is going to be outrageous. I can't wait to get to Tech File tomorrow to record to see Ken and laugh in his Bear fan face because
there you go.
I just don't understand what they thought this was.
It is kind of fascinating to see how quickly, like during the game, all of that pomposity, all of that bravado, all the, just the confidence, that seemingly real confidence that Bears fans had all offseason just absolutely evaporated as the game went on, to the point where my favorite kind of non-football aspect of the broadcast yesterday was when they were talking early about Jordan Love's mother and where she was sitting. And they cut to her, and there were a ton about it. Like Justin Fields got the ticket. So they were in a heavily Bears fan laden section, right? The Bears fans all around her. And then they cut to her towards like the end of the third quarter, early fourth, and they were all gone. It was nothing but empty seats and Jordan Love's mom and her friends. Like, I couldn't believe that they just took off. Like, they couldn't handle it.
That's the best part because it was funny. I stepped outside on our balcony for a moment during the game and I was watching it through the balcony.
Right.
And I'm outside and I'm watering the flowers and I'm looking in and I see things are going downhill. It's in the third quarter. I'm like, things are going downhill for the Bears right now on offense. And I get a notification on my watch and my husband texts me he's on the couch and he's like, they're booing now. They're booing.
Nice,
so I ran back in the house. I was like, wait, what? We're bored. Like, turn it up. I need to hear it louder. And then you see the videos on Twitter, all the fans leaving. It's like, turn it up. I want
it's more. So good. So you watched at home. You watched at home. You are surrounded by family. Is that your normal routine? We don't have a regular rapport yet. So I got to know. Are you geared up? Are you in Packers gear? Do you have a lot of people over? Is it just you and your husband? How do you watch the game usually?
It varies. So this week it was just me and my husband. I made sure to have on my Packer pajama pants at the very least while watching this game. It was so this is why this first game was like, let me just watch this, me and the husband alone. So one NBA 2K came out this weekend. So I've been spending a lot of time playing my video games, and I was like, when the game ends, it's back to the video game. So
I love it.
Kick people out. And then two, we just finished our living room home stereo system. And I wanted to be able to experience football, regular season football, in full 5.1 sound and see what it felt like and sounded like. And what a time.
I was going to say, could you hear like little pieces of audio from like the crowd that maybe you wouldn't normally? Like, I got to think that's got to be like an immersive experience.
Absolutely. Like, you hear the crowd behind you, and then up front, you hear the commentators and a little bit more crowd. So it sounds like you're in the stands as much as you can be while hearing commentary. It was fantastic.
Cool. What was your initial reaction to the game itself? Because I know as Packers fans, it's really hard to divorce the idea of there's the football game going on, right? Clearly, that's the whole reason we're all here. But then I kind of revel in the Bears fans' misery, the rivalry, talking smack, all that. That's so like side salad to the main course, though. Like, what was your initial kind of reaction to the football game that was played?
It was one of those things. So going into the game, we know the last two season openers for the Packers haven't been great. The Saints 2 years ago, Vikings last year just didn't go the way we wanted it to. But then also knowing that, the Matt LaFleur Packers are undefeated against the Bears. So I was like, hey, something's going to give in this particular game here. And it gave the way I was definitely hoping. I had moments of frustration throughout the win, but I love having moments of frustrations in a win because you're still able to celebrate and then go back and say, here's what we can improve on. Don't know why Aaron Jones went missing again. That's just, for a while it was like maybe it's Aaron Rodgers checking out of, call on plays and going to passes. And it's like, well, he's gone and we're still not feeding Aaron Jones the ball. So that was the first thing when I was watching, like, what is happening? And then when we got back on that track in the third quarter, it's like, doesn't it make sense to give the ball to Aaron?
It's amazing how it just unlocks the offense, right? I mean, the idea that, and what's weird is it's so funny you say that, because I was going back and rewatching it last night, and it's not like Aaron Jones wasn't out there at times throughout that stretch after the initial drive where they scored the touchdown. You're like, oh, how hard was that, right? But then they go, 4 or 5 series without scoring, and you're like, it's funny because they're seemingly leaning on AJ Dillon on early downs, and then you see Aaron Jones kind of, here and there on a third down or maybe a second and long inserted into like the passing game. But as a primary runner, they, like you said, they didn't utilize him again until the first drive in the second half. And then lo and behold, they literally marched right down the field and scored another touchdown. So I understand like the idea of wanting to keep him fresh and, it's a long season, all of that. And there is some, now if you're the Packers, you turn around and you look at the play where he got hurt on the touchdown and you think, well, see, this is why we are doing why we're trying to limit him, is because, you never know when an injury is going to bite him or what have you. But man, I just think it was frustrating in the moment where you actually have a recipe, that works, and why you continuously go away from it, seemingly on purpose, is somewhat bewildering. Like, it's really hard to fathom.
Every time, and again, it's like, oh, we're doing this again. Like when it's just like we had these conversations all last season where it's like again, and then you still see some time management problems where you're like, a little bit cleaner here. We need to be cleaner here. A lot of penalties, which with a younger team, I expected the Packers to have more penalties.
Point. Right. Yeah.
So like that was part of the growing pains I expected, but it's still in the moment when you're watching, you're just like, some of these we don't have been like unnecessary roughness penalties, like those are the ones where you're like, we can avoid that. Like,
yeah. I mean, easily, because that's controllable, right? That's not a physical mistake, right? That's a mental one, and those are the things that frustrate you. But like you said, it is a very young team. You do expect some of that, like the attendance stuff. Speaking of like the idea that it's a young team, I loved Bakhtiari, his interview with The Athletic last week, where he was talking about this team is like probably, and I'm paraphrasing here, but probably a little too dumb to know better, that they're not supposed to be very good, right? And they're going to be wild and they're going to make some mistakes, but they're going to be they are really talented and have huge upside. And they're probably just going to be running around, with a lot of fervor, a lot of energy. On the flip side, it was like looking at the Bears, man. And I'm trying to set aside the fans here, because we all know the fans talk smack and that's what they do. And it's their lot in life to be fans of a horrible franchise. But for the team itself, I saw the Bears really kind of snowball in on themselves as that game went on. And that started me thinking, and look, I know you can only play who you're scheduled to play, right? Like the Packers took care of business, like they have to. Like they were scheduled to play the Bears, they beat the Bears. But as you watch that game, you're like, man, I think we just beat a pretty bad football team. And I understand it's week 1. I understand I don't want to overreact, but I think it's only natural if you're a Packers fan to say, okay, maybe temper it a little bit, like have fun with the win. But man, how good is this Bears team really? Because they did not look very good at all yesterday.
If that is the case, I agree with you. The Bears did not look very good yesterday, but if they do turn out to be a bad football team, in fact, then what you want to see from your team is winning handily. And the Packers won by three possessions. So like, it's one of those things where it's like, yes, we saw the Packers had some problems throughout. Yes, the Bears may be bad. And if they are a bad team, then the Packers did what they're supposed to do as possibly a good team, which is taking care of this bad team and also making the game not close at all. Like it blew open completely in the second half. And if they are a bad team, that's what you want to see. Like I saw a Bears fan saying like, oh, well, of course, like this happened. Justin Fields was running for his life. We didn't have an offensive line. Then you see Packer fans who are like, nah, he just sucks. It's like, I feel like that AT&T commercial, I think it was AT&T with the little girl, like, why not both? Like, at this point, like, we don't like, yes, the offensive line was keys for sure. But on that same
Oh,
token,
man.
when Justin Fields did have some time, there were a
Yeah.
lot of times where he made the wrong read. He just overthrew the ball. It didn't look coherent from him
Yes.
on. So you can say maybe that's because he had pressure on him, and when he didn't have pressure, he was still feeling like he had some. So he was acting
Right.
erratically. But like when you looked at the quarterback play between Fields and Love, like you saw one quarterback that looked pretty poised in the situation
Yes.
and whatever was happening around him, and the other looking frazzled. And again, if you want to argue offensive line, that's definitely a piece to it. But you can't also discount the fact that Fields was just making some bad plays also when he did have to throw the ball.
Yeah, and it's tough if you're the Bears because, obviously Luke Getsy seemed to unlock something towards the end of last year when they started leaning on his legs rather than his arm and, decision making in the passing game. But then you come into week 1 with all these expectations and all offseason
Right.
you've been kind of retooling for this moment. And I think there's zero question in my mind that the Bears weren't maybe not expecting the Packers to be as dominant up front on defense as the Packers were because they had no answer for what was pretty simplistic as far as what the Packers were doing. They were just dominant as far as they were running lots of stunts. And it wasn't like they were exotic blitzes or anything like that, but the Bears just couldn't hold up. And I mean, once you're done up front, you can't operate as an offense. And I think more often than not, the Packers were just winning the battle on both sides of the ball. You talk about Jordan Love. Yeah, he had all day for the most part to go through his progressions and like manipulate safeties with his eyes and be able to go through, okay, 1, 2, not there, hit my check down. Like he could operate on offense in a way Justin Fields couldn't. I just think the Packers, I mean, to my eyes, they whooped them up front for most of this game, and that was the key.
Absolutely.
Ultimately.
Games are won in the trenches. We know that, like you said, and the Packers did so handily on both sides. Like the offensive line play was really good when it comes to pass protection. Like there were some shaky moments in run protection. And
Yeah, the run game was a little up and down, no doubt.
yeah, so I get that, but Jordan Love had far more time, such a clean pocket to make his reads, make decisions, far more so than what Justin Fields had on his side. And then when you look at the Packers defensive line going up against that Bears offensive line, like it was a beast. Like Rashawn Gary was like, I'm back. Hello, it is time to make my return. Kenny Clark, big boy. Like it was just Wyatt. Like it was just over and over and over, just relentless. Like Justin Fields, I think he was sacked 4 times.
Yeah.
In this game, and it could have been double that.
And it could have been more if he just did an amazing job of escaping things like that Jair blitz and things of that nature. Like, there was one where Wyatt and Clark almost got him and he got away for a gain. Like there were, to your point, they could have sacked him probably 8 times. But yeah, they just dominated up front. And the idea that, the Justin Fields piece aside, looking at Jordan Love, man, stats don't say everything. They never do. There's always context, but 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 123.2 passer rating right out of the gate. That's a pretty damn impressive debut, and I know comparisons are always going to be made to Rodgers' first start, and I get that, but to go on the road and do that with being down Watson out of this game, you got Dobbs on a pitch count, and you're throwing to a bunch of rookies, a couple second-year guys, and you're putting up those numbers and you're killing it. Here's the other key for Jordan. He killed it on 3rd and 4th down.
That's the piece.
It wasn't like he was like, rocket fired on 1st down, like easy play action passes, although there was some of that. But man, on 3rd and 4th down, he was absolutely money. And that's got to be demoralizing if you're the Bears. And it's so encouraging if you're the Packers.
You couldn't have said it better. And a lot of those 3rd downs where he was making those conversions, like he had a few that were long where it's like, oh boy, like might
this
be
isn't like a 3rd and 3, right.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I mentioned this in the offseason or in the preseason where it's like he doesn't seem to get phased, Jordan Love. Like he always seems to be kind of poised together. He would start off slow and come back out and hit the touchdown, then it's back out the game. So I kept saying, like, man, I can't wait till week 1 to see him in Chicago, in Soldier Field, which is a very hostile crowd for any quarterback to walk in, especially if you're wearing green and gold. You know what that energy is from Bears fans. Right. So for him to go down there, stay poised. Like he wasn't perfect. There were some shots he missed. There's some things he can clean up. Absolutely. But without Watson, with Dobbs on the pitch count, like you mentioned, he still was able to complete passes to 6 different receivers. He was still able to, get the ball moving. pass protection was great. Like I said, he wasn't phased. He showed up in big, big moments. And the throws that he was making in those moments, like they were on point. The touchdown fade where it's just like, oh my God, like he just saw it. He's like, I'm giving my guy a chance. 1v1. Go after it. He went up and got
and the way Dobbs high pointed that ball too was just
beautiful.
incredible. It just incredible. And that, to your point, the stuff where there are even moments on some of those third downs where the pocket is collapsing. Like, it's good protection, but it's his lack of kind of flight or fight, thing where I think some young quarterbacks, lots of young quarterbacks actually, they feel that pressure. And maybe you saw that from Justin Fields a little bit yesterday, where they feel that pressure and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I got to go.
Yep.
I got to take off. I got to abandon whatever my read is. Like, Jordan just stands in there. And maybe that ends up biting him at some point. Like, there was one play in particular where I think it was Ngakoue came around the edge and almost swiped the ball, but he got it off a big completion. So maybe at some point that comes and hits him hard. But man, the way he just seemingly has like ice in his veins when it comes to this pocket constricting all around him, but he's so focused and locked in and calm and just has the ability to deliver in those scenarios. That's so encouraging for, the first start of the season, again, on the road. Yeah. It's funny hearing Matt after the game talk about towards the end of the first half when there was that really funky sequence right before they kicked the field goal. And apparently Jordan was miffed and upset at LaFleur because he didn't get the call in time for them to try to get it off. And that's why they ended up, because I remember on Watch Party, Corey and I were like yelling, what the hell? Get the playoff, like whatever. And it is kind of interesting, the old piñata, so to speak, about, taking the play clock down and all these wasted timeouts. Well, that guy's, here in New York now, and there's one guy left behind from that operation, and seemingly the wasted timeouts and the clock management stuff is still in the building. So maybe Matt LaFleur needs to come under some more scrutiny here, because all of those aspects were on display yesterday. I don't think they're telling tales out of school, especially with Matt admitting it. It's like, okay, maybe Matt needs to work on this operation a little bit more.
Absolutely. And I noticed that, like, that was one of the first things I noticed, where I was like, 12 is gone. And we're still having some of these same issues.
They took a timeout in the first drive of the game again. Like, first drive of the game.
You were starting early. If you were going based off old 2022, 2021 Packer drinking rules, it was starting early. Starting early in this game.
Oh, boy. Gosh. I mean, it's true. And that's frustrating on the outside. But I understand, again, it's a very young crew, all working together. You want to take that time out, make sure they're on the same page. On the flip side, as much as I, talked all offseason about needing to see it in a game that mattered, well, this game mattered. This game counts. And Joe Barry did a pretty damn good job. Like, there are still some frustrations on my end where, man, we see a lot of that really soft cover 2 shell kind of pre-snap look where guys are 8-9 yards off the line of scrimmage. But I tell you what, for this particular game against this offense, that seemingly worked really, really well. As far as, and I think I talked about this in my post-game chat, the way this defense rallied to the ball and limited the yards after the catch was so noticeably better than it has been the last couple of years. And if you can get that consistently, I don't mind the playing off. I don't mind the getting up, letting them catch it maybe a little few yards down, but then you rally to the ball and you tackle and you don't let that rupture into a big gain. I thought for the most part, that was noticeably better yesterday.
Absolutely. And that's one of the big things that stood out to me. Same general vicinity, what you're talking about. And it's like, they didn't give up that many big or dynamic plays against the Bears. And as a Packer fan, you see Justin Fields, you see, another mobile quarterback. And we know for years that the Packers have struggled.
Oh, yeah.
Years. They've struggled against mobile quarterbacks. And we saw what Justin Fields did last season, like on Tech Foul.
All around him.
Yeah. Our Bears fan, he was like, Justin Fields had a great fantasy season last year. But like, can we see him actually have a good, like, quarterbacking season this year? And knowing what he can do with his legs, the Packers did a very good job of keeping him contained. Even the run game, like, each running back had like a one play where it was like, 11 yards. 12 yards.
Busted 1 or 2. Yeah.
But after that, it was they couldn't get too much going. And in addition to that, we talked a lot about all the different weapons, the Bears added to their offense this
Right.
past offseason. They had a lot of money. They spent the money. They got DJ Moore over there, to help Chase Claypool fall more in the depth chart of where he should be. And on Saturday or Sunday, they didn't do much. They had 2 catches on 4 targets. And all of Moore came in one drive.
Moore came one drive. He had 2 targets on that drive. I think it was in the first quarter, and then or maybe the start of the second quarter, and then he disappeared for the remainder of the game. I don't think Chase Claypool did anything other than get kind of blown up on that one attempted block by Keyshawn Nixon, who I thought Keyshawn had an up and down game, but he was so physical and good in the open field when it came to tackling. I thought in coverage, some issues there, but just speaking of the physicality, just the physicality across the board.
Yeah.
Between Rasul Douglas and Darnell Savage, both came laying the wood in a way that I'm not going to say shocked, but it was noticeable how up for it they were in a way that I haven't seen, especially from Savage so far. That was encouraging.
Absolutely.
The physicality. All across the defense.
Absolutely. And talking about guys who were, shining light, something else that stood out was the fact that a lot of these young guys, the moment didn't seem too bright for him. The tackle that Lucas Van Ness had on Fields when he was trying to escape, where he's like he thought he was just going to get away, but it's no.
Yeah, exactly.
Van Ness can move, caught him. You saw he got his first sack during that game as well. Carl Brooks got his first sack. Wyatt sacks, Forrest fumble, Quay Walker, that NO for the touchdown.
Yes.
Beautiful. The man ran 70 yards to go 35 yards. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful. The man was moving.
So good.
And grooving. So good. I love seeing the young guys show up. And I know we talked last week about how there's just more depth on the defensive side, especially up front. And you saw it as keeping guys fresh enough to be able to continuously go after it when they're rushing and when they're trying to, put pressure on that quarterback. It's beautiful to see. And we saw flashes of that. And this defense, we've talked about, I don't want to be Charlie Brown with the football. I don't. So I'm not going to overreact to one good game.
I was just going to say, I think we're halfway to the ball. We've just started our run towards the football. I have yet to believe that she's not going to pull it away yet.
You got to. And I like to look at the season in chunks. So with it not being 16 games, it's a little off now. It's to go 4-game chunks and you kind of take a look at where things are. But hey, 1 week down, the result that you would hope to have came about. And hopefully we don't have any really serious injuries coming out of this game. And then we can go, it's Atlanta next week, I believe.
Yep.
And go from there.
It'll be a tough one, no doubt.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick, but we've talked offense, we talked defense. Remember last week we mentioned having to have a little faith in these youngsters on special teams. How about Carlson nailing that 52-yarder at the end of the half? Looked like it would have been good from 70. My God, what a kick. And I understand that's the job, right? That's why they brought him in. You're supposed to, the expectation he's going to make that. But man, it's been a long time since a 52-yarder wasn't an adventure in Green Bay, where you were not kind of just maybe flipping a coin or holding your breath or whatever. He absolutely crushed that kick. And he looked good the rest of the time too. I mean, that was a good debut performance for a kid who got a little heat this summer. He looked pretty good.
Absolutely. We saw him, the extra points were an adventure at some point during the offseason. He made all of those today. And like you mentioned that, I think it was a 52-yarder field goal where it's looked like it could have been good from, you could back that up 10, maybe another 20 yards. And it was
at least
the leg power that he has is one of the things where you're I see why you want to make the investment to try to see if you can, craft him into being the next kicker who's here for 10, 12, 15 years.
Do it. Exactly.
Again, now is the time to see. This is the rebuilding year, quote unquote, for the Pack.
Definitely.
The
reset. Yep.
Reset.
You want to take this time, right? You want to take this time to build a foundation, which is what they're doing. And so going to need some patience. It's not going to be blowouts every week.
Nope.
But I'll definitely take a blowout in week 1 against the Bears.
Every time.
No doubt about it. As always, as usual, it has been an absolute joy talking Packers with you, Camille. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, remind the folks out there watching and listening where they can find your content here on this internet.
Yes. So every Tuesday, make sure you check out the Technical File Podcast, TECKNICAL, Technical File Podcast. We record live every Tuesday around 6:45, 7 p.m. And then that episode goes live the following day on your favorite podcasting platforms. We discuss everything, mostly NFL, NBA, and some wrestling. We're some wrestling fans as
There you
well.
go.
So
There you go.
there's some crossover there. And then Locked On Bucks should be starting up soon. So once I have some more of those appearances, I'll definitely be advertising them on here as well.
Awesome. I love it. I love all your work. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll talk to you next week, Camille.
For sure. Take care.